A lone figure stands outside of a cave. Inside the cave, we can barely see a small table that has several objects on it, unidentifiable. The figure is dressed in dark, simple clothes. Leather strips are wrapped around his forearms, and a dirty brown cloak hides his torso and face. As the camera moves in on the figure, they raise an arm. Crackling red energy snaps from their fist. In a fluid motion, the man slams his fist into the ground. Energy erupts from him, pulsing through the rock. The cave shatters and collapses. This destructive effect breaks the rest of the ledge that he was standing on, but the figure isn't worried. They spread their arms like a T-posing gymnast, and they fall backwards into the forest below. My name is Ben, and this is Comic Book Breakdown, episode 18.18 of Scion. Trapped. Sometime later, our mysterious figure approaches a Raven city at night. Two guards stand on top of personal floating devices outside of the gate and are armed with glowing blue staffs. They lower down, asking the Raggedy Man to identify himself. The man replies that he is simply a traveler, returning home after a long time gone. This isn't what the guards want to hear. This isn't some Borderlands hovel, guy. This is the capital of the Raven Nation. The guard grabs the mysterious figure by the shoulder, but the figure brushes his hand off. "My business isn't with you," he says. The other guard holds his glowing light closer to the man's face. "Well, it is now. Show yourself unless you want to die here," he says. "Who are you?" The figure pulls back their hood, and the guards suddenly gasp. It's their king. It's Bron. This is an interesting move on Mars's part. First off, this reveal wasn't much of a surprising reveal at all. If the glowing red hand wasn't enough of a clue, the cover also features a shirtless Bron in some kind of spring or pool. The cover is actually designed as a match for issue 26, which featured Elijah's adventure. Both covers feature the lead character in a natural setting, with a vertical border on either side of their image. Inside of that border are faces. For Elijah, they were the faces of assorted lesser races members. For Bron, it is various Raven citizens, most notably his brother Court, Mai Shen, and I think that's Little Murdered Nock somewhere in there. It's a very striking cover, actually. It's really nice. Having Bron standing in a stream or a pool implies, like, a washing away, a cleansing of sins. Has Bron's time away from the throne helped calm him down a little bit? He certainly is dressed like a monk or a vagabond. Maybe he's been contemplating his behavior, and, as he now returns to the throne, he'll be a changed man? I mean, the old Bron would probably have attacked these guards for questioning his identity. Like, I can immediately picture him grabbing one by the throat and pressing him up against the wall, so, his patience here's a good sign, in my opinion. Also, I just want to say, this version of Bron looks a lot like John Wick. Like, give Wick a scar over his right eye, and you've got Bron here. It is uncanny how similar they are. What's interesting about this move is that Scion has largely been focused on Ethan and Ashley's emotional journey for the past few issues, while introducing new challenges like managing the Sanctuary Isle, the growing divide in Ethan's family, and Nadia/Tigris as a looming threat of some kind. And I have appreciated the new type of challenge that these have posed to our cast. These aren't threats that Ethan can just sigil his way through, and that has been a really refreshing change of pace. But having Bron back feels like it's going to be a return to warfare. It means another looming threat in the background, and it kind of feels like falling back on old story tropes far too soon. We have barely begun to address any of our current pressing concerns, and you just want to put Bron back on the map? Sweet Jesus, y'all. Inside the Raven Keep, the Chamberlain finds King Court sitting in a gazebo outdoors. He is taking in the night, calmly peeling an apple. Panicked, the Chamberlain informs him that his brother, the king, has returned. Court pauses. That's impossible. Bron was killed at the tournament arena. The Chamberlain insists, though, he's just arrived through the city gates. Court looks away. Maybe it's an impostor, some kind of Heron ruse. The Chamberlain presses on. Sir, it is the king, however impossible it might seem. It is your brother, and your rightful king. So that's it then, Court says. Bron takes the throne, and I return to the shadows. Powerless. Just like it's always been. If it's true. For a moment, he lays out a hypothetical to the Chamberlain. This man, this impostor, maybe he's just a madman dressed as the king, trying to seize power. In the face of that, why, the current king would have to defend himself, yes? Court picks up the knife that he was using to peel his apple, and he examines it. I wouldn't really have any choice at all, would I? You can't be serious, the Chamberlain argues. You know how powerful your brother was. You know what he's capable of. Court nods. I do. But he doesn't know what I'm capable of. And he tucks the knife up his leather sleeve. When the Chamberlain tries to talk him down from this idea again, Court finally loses his temper. Well, what should he do then? Just hand the kingdom back like some kind of bauble? He has proven himself a capable king, more capable than Bron ever was. Besides, he wouldn't be the first king to sit upon a throne with blood on his hands. He wouldn't even be the first one in his family, hinting again that Court knows about Bron murdering their father. A powerful voice says Court's name, and he turns to see his brother. Bron reaches out and clasps Court by his shoulders. You don't seem happy to see me. Court pauses. No, I am. He leans in and hugs Bron. I was just shocked to see you. The Chamberlain excuses himself, leaving the brothers to, do what they must. Wink, wink. Bron praises the Chamberlain. He found him quite useful when he was king. Court agrees he's been of great help. But, Bron says, there's no substitute for the actual king, is there? Which is almost as subtle as Bron is capable of being. Wow. The two then go back and forth for a few pages, with Bron hinting that he wants the throne back, and Court trying to find holes in his story, proving him to be an imposter. They discuss their father, and we see more hints that Court knows who is responsible for his father's death, and it sure isn't Ashley. Bron actually asks if Court has done anything to avenge their father, and he says that he is waiting for the time to be right. Picking the proper time to punish the guilty is important, he says. And Bron stares at him hard. He thanks Court for maintaining the kingdom so well in the meantime. It must be hard to give up power once you've had a taste of it. Court rubs his wrist, hinting at the hidden dagger, and he agrees. You never know what someone might do to get power. Or keep it. He then asks about how badly wounded Bron was. After all, everyone thought that he was dead. He would have had to have been injured greatly to have been gone for so long, but he is clearly still alive. Yeah, it's great, Bron says. My Shen's power healed him. It seems he can recover from almost any wound. Who knows what it would take to actually kill him, he muses. And he turns away from Court. It would be interesting to find out, wouldn't it? The thin blade slides down from Court's hiding place. He spins it. He thinks about it. And then he tucks it away. Bron turns, smiling. It's good to come home, he says, and find that nothing has really changed. He brings Court's apple up to his mouth and starts to eat it as he walks away, having claimed everything that was Court's. Court is left alone, his expression one of, what, hatred for his brother? For himself? Trapped in a role that he never wanted, trapped by a superpowered psychopath of a brother, and unable to do anything about it. Court has always had the dubious honor of being better than Bron as a person, but also not as good of a person as Ashley. This makes it hard to qualify him as a good guy or a bad guy, you know. Bron is clearly selfish. Ashley is clearly selfless. But Court, well, he's somewhere in the middle. What little we know of him indicates that he feared Bron's temper and never coveted the throne. But he also makes a solid case for himself here. He seems to have taken the role of king seriously, as indicated by our general lack of drama from the East over the past several issues. He doesn't seem to be relishing the power in the same way that Bron did, but he does seem proud of himself. He seems kind of content, actually. He seems like he should be king. And overall, I do think that Mars does a really great job of fleshing Court out a little bit more here. We sympathize with him, if only because he's better as a king than Bron is, and watching him try to politically deny Bron the throne was kind of great. The dialogue between them is filled with double meaning and subtle threats. It actually reads more like a scene between Ashley and Bron, with the pair fencing mentally. But Ashley won those fights because Bron would surely never kill her. And then Bron killed his father. And then he tried to kill his sister. And Court knows it. So no matter how better suited Court might be to the throne, no matter how much he might relish the position, no matter how much smarter he is than Bron, he loses. Because Bron would kill him. And after this scene, no one knows how to kill Bron, or if it's even possible. Bron even gives us a demonstration of this. He sees the half-peeled apple, its skin still dangling off of it. Well, that means that Court would had to have had a knife to peel it, yes, but there is no knife visible anywhere. Bron picks up the apple, he plays with it, he turns his back on Court,
no swearing,
gives Court a chance to kill him. And when Court can't even bring himself to try, he turns and smiles and mocks Court's lack of growth. Even having tasted the power of the throne and knowing that Bron killed their father, Court cannot bring himself to kill Bron. This scene is so masterfully written. I love how politically charged the Raven lands are. This scene was so much more interesting and revealing than anything that we got in the Heron lands during Ethan's home visit. I absolutely loved this. We do see a artistic return of Jim Cheung, Don Hillsman II, and Jason Keith, and they return in high form, folks. The only downside, and this isn't even really a complaint, it's just more of an observation of their general style, but there are almost no backgrounds during Bron and Court's conversation. We get an establishing shot, and then it is mostly the cool colors of night filling our backgrounds otherwise. This lighter bit of penciling is part of what allowed Cheung to finish the issue on time, so I wouldn't be surprised to see more of this as we move on. Keith's colors are still moody and very appropriate for the scene, so the scenes don't feel empty at all even without the backgrounds, and the characters are so well rendered, the acting here is so good, that honestly you just lose sight of the backgrounds anyways. The backgrounds don't matter. What is being said, what is being done, that is what matters, and that is done extremely well here. Man, how is this more exciting to me than a pirate attack last issue? Oh, man. Anyways, we then cut to the Heron Palace, where we find King Dane discussing the recent impact that the creation of the Sanctuary Isle has had on the nobility of the land. They are displeased that the lesser races can leave their service if they so choose, but Dane actually defends their right to do so. Several faces from the crowd basically argue against it. Dane is the king, can't he just, forbid it? Come on, man. Maybe if Dane had been able to control his own son, another one suggests, they wouldn't be facing this new crisis. Aye, and they might have won the war, too, another adds. This all might very well be true, Dane starts, but how many more of them would have died in the meantime? Otherwise, what problems that Dane has with his son are his business, not theirs. He invited the nobility here to share their thoughts so that he can make good, informed decisions, but he did not do it because he is beholden to them in any way. An aide then approaches the king quietly and whispers news in his ears. Dane pauses in thought before announcing that Bron has returned and taken up the Raven throne once more. The nobility are shocked and scandalized by this news. Everyone thought that Bron was dead. Maybe this is some kind of Raven trick. It certainly means a return to war. The king asks his subjects to stay calm and keep their minds focused on peace. He knows the hardships of war, and he doesn't want to see them inflicted upon their nation once more. If Bron has taken the throne again, then they must make a friend of him. We cut to the Raven Throne, where we find Bron, still clad in his beggar's clothes, sitting. He is slouched down, his forehead resting against one hand. He looks tired. He looks weary. And that's where issue 31 ends. This scene here at the end is a fairly quick one, but again, there's a lot here. This is the first time that we've actually seen how King Dane handles business in his kingdom. Every other scene that we've had with him has mostly been a private one, a family occasion kind of thing. The death of Artor, hanging with Mariella, dinner with his children. In Earthzone history, the nobility that supports a monarchy can have major impacts on a nation in all kinds of ways. It only makes sense that the nobility of Avalon would have a role of some kind. We don't get to see much of them, and I do think that they are largely here to follow up on the impact of Ethan's actions, and to further showcase the change that we have seen in Dane. He is very stern here. Him shutting down the nobility's more confrontational concerns doesn't really feel like the Dane that we have seen in the past. He feels harder here, much more authoritative than he is normally. This change is highlighted by him calling for peace with the Raven Nation. I guessed a few issues ago that Dane may have been replaced by Mai Shen, who has gone missing and is able to impersonate others. We have seen that before with Burned Rex, but I can't separate out whether that's me remembering where this story goes or me reading what has been presented to us intelligently. Because honestly, Dane wasn't thrilled with going to war to begin with. The only reason that he really fought the Ravens at all was because the Ravens wouldn't back down from the fight. He allowed his youngest son to be their prisoner for a year in order to avoid war. And while admittedly that didn't really work out, it does show how far Dane would go in order to maintain peace. So him pressing for an alliance with Bron isn't terribly out of character. It could just be hopeful pragmatism. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see a lot of who Dane was before the war to get a good chance to compare him here. It's just the little snippets of private time that we've gotten. And somebody in a public setting can be very different from who they are in private. So maybe this is a good thing. Maybe it's a sinister plot. Stay on your toes, folks. I can't really recall where we go with this. Issue 32 brings this news to the Heron's tomb. We, and Princess Elena, find Prince Kai here, standing quietly before Artor's tomb. Elena thought that she would find him here, and Kai replies that he likes the quiet. He likes being with Artor. He looks back to the statue of his older brother, and Elena says that they need to talk. Bron is alive. Father just told the nobility. And what's more, he means to make a lasting peace with him. Kai found the news of Bron's survival hard enough to take, but this? Peace? Bron is a monster. He killed Artor. He cut his throat and watched him bleed to death. What is Father thinking, he asks angrily. I understand him less and less these days, further indicating that something is up with Dane. Elena agrees that she doesn't understand it either, but their father is still their king. They have to abide by his decision. Ethan already abandoned this family, Kai says bitterly. Is Father doing it too? As he storms out of the tomb, Elena looks at the statue of their older brother. She doesn't know. This is a recap of recent events and some forward plot momentum on the part of the Heron children. Kai has had a hard enough time dealing with Artor's death and Ethan's recent life choices, let's say. But his bad attitude so far has been tolerated by his father. How long is that patience going to last, though, when Kai starts questioning his decisions? And can they even have a lasting peace when Kai still wants to see Artor avenged? Like, as far as Artor is concerned, Bron needs to die. Peace be damned. And that's pretty good stuff. I like this scene. On the Great Sea, we find Ethan, Ashley, and Nadia on a boat. A fine peach fuzz triangle has grown on Ethan's chin, and I kinda hate it, and Ashley has let her hair down from the ponytail that she has been sporting the past few issues. They look over the prow of the ship as they approach Tigris. The city is sprawling. Many of the buildings are circular, topped with domes and small spires. Birds can be seen gathering around them. It's actually impressive how prevalent the animals are. A massive bridge-like structure blocks their way, a kneeling stone statue that is larger than their boat, resting atop the center arch. It's a very small view of this brand new land, but honestly, it's very pretty. For 2 pages, we then check in on the Raven and Heron Kings. This is laid out cleverly, with the Heron portion topping the pages as Kai confronts his father over this new proposed alliance. The bottom is the Raven portion, where the Chamberlain discusses the alliance with Bron, who is back in his armor and sporting a nice neat ponytail. He's cleaned up a little bit since the last time we saw him. The panels are all the exact same shape and size, and a lot of the camera work inside of those panels is also the same, indicating that the same kind of thing is going on here, even if what we're seeing inside those panels is slightly different. This is one of those little clever storytelling things I really appreciate Cheung doing. Kai asks if his father is losing his mind, but Dane assures him that he is fine. He is trying for peace because they must try for peace. And if Kai doesn't understand that, then he has a lot to learn before he can ever sit upon the throne. In the Raven portion, we learn that the Herons have offered the alliance and wish to have a summit with the Ravens. They'll even let the Ravens choose the time and location as a sign of trust. Bron, of course, is down with this. The Chamberlain, though, he's a bit worried. If the Herons were really interested in peace, why didn't they offer it during Court's time on the throne? This doesn't worry Bron, though. He's sure that this will end well. If the Ravens want to offer peace, hey, we should give it a shot. And that doesn't sound like Bron either. How do the kingdoms communicate? The scene with Elena and Kai at the beginning happens right after Dane is informed of Bron taking the throne again. Elena even says, "Father just told the nobility." Kai leaves that scene with Elena, finds his father, yells at him, and Dane says that he's already messaged the Ravens. We then cut to the Ravens, who are then discussing the message. So are they emailing each other? Are they calling each other? These scenes would indicate that they are communicating almost instantaneously, and Avalon should certainly have that kind of technology, but we've never seen any kind of long-form communication yet, so I'm mostly just curious. I am a bit amazed that Dane just learned that Bron was taking the throne, decided to ask for peace, and then he just immediately contacted the Ravens. That is some fast decision-making. It's almost like it was planned. Ethan and his party then travel Tigris by foot, with Nadia giving us a Cliff Notes version of its history. The founders of the country didn't approve of using the lesser races as a workforce, so they left the Raven and Heron nations, crossed the Great Sea, and found this land. They traveled upriver, created the city, and eventually intermarried with the native populace. The technology that they see here is all thanks to their own ingenuity. Ethan is openly amazed by the city, which does feel very metropolitan. A raised monorail cuts through this particular portion, ferrying passengers across the city. We do see some trees scattered around as well, so it's not just a built-up metropolis. Nadia suggests that they find a place for her guests to rest, for surely they must be weary after their travels. But Ethan is all business. They're here for a purpose, to secure an alliance and technology. He'd prefer that they do what they came here to do. Nadia nods. She has a certain relationship with the leadership of Tigris that can guarantee them an audience. She leads them to a monorail that is set into the nearby ground, and she touches a silver pillar that is about hip height. One of the glass cards slides to a stop, and again, Ethan is amazed by the technology. The transports run on magnetic fields and are controlled by these curbside pillars. Such technology belongs to everyone in Tigris, and all have access, Nadia says. The people of Tigris believe in that absolute equality for all. As they travel in the car, Ashley brings up the idea that Tigris has been isolated for so long. So why did she leave? Why did Nadia visit the Ravenlands? Nadia replies that not everyone in Tigris wishes to remain isolated. Some think that it's time to approach the rest of the world, so she left to see what was out there. The vehicle comes to a gentle stop in front of a massive building. People mill about the large, wide stairs that lead up to it. Two large statues of female figures flank the stairs. We can see a robotic figure leaning over, and it looks like they're vacuuming the sidewalk. Nadia explained a few issues ago that Tigris developed robotic servants in place of the lesser races, and here we have the evidence of it. As they enter the large stone building, a robot bows to them, and Nadia announces that the Khanate awaits. The Khanate is a woman, maybe in her 30s or 40s. She has a round face and some wrinkles by the corners of her eye, but she looks pretty good shape still. Her black hair is pulled back into a tight bun, and she is dressed in a red tunic with black edges. Gold and blue patterns decorate the part that covers her chest, and she has a small golden ornament on her forehead. The Khanate Minda welcomes them all by name. Nadia has told her about them to some degree, and she recognizes how unprecedented it must be for the Scions of the Raven and Heron nations to be together.
That's a really good title drop there.
Ethan and Minda exchange pleasantries and compliments. This is mostly done to establish that Minda is very well informed. She is familiar with Ethan's struggle to found the Sanctuary Isle, and she applauds his decision to free what his people call the lesser races. Ethan talks up how cool her city is and how honored he is to be welcomed here. Minda summons a spiced tea, and they move to a sitting area. If they're going to talk business, then let's be civilized about it. Ethan and Ashley explain that they are impressed by Tigris' technology, and they would like to use it to defend their island nation. Minda is quite sure that she could see to it that such items are provided. Things like energy cannons, particle shields, and more easy stuff. A robotic servant pours her tea, and then he moves to Ethan, offering a cup. Ethan thanks her for the offer, but he has to say that they aren't a wealthy nation. He isn't really sure what they can do to pay for such items. Minda is sure that they can work something out as they advance the cause. Ashley picks up on that. The cause? What exactly do you mean? In exchange for their weapons, Tigris would use their island as a staging ground, a base from which they would spread their beliefs. With the two nations weakened by their recent war, now is the perfect time to strike. Tigris will take the nations, install new leadership, and bring utter and absolute freedom to the lesser races. It's exactly what Ethan and Ashley want. Ethan is so outraged he actually stands up. You want us to help conquer our kingdoms? Are you mad? Minda and Nadia are both fairly cold to his reaction. Minda thought that they would be agreeable to this idea. They have broken from their parent nations. Their cause, the advancement of the lesser races, is shared by neither of them. Why would they object to seeing these unjust monarchies swept away? Ashley has now joined Ethan on her feet. Because whatever differences with the two nations, they would never allow them to fall under the control of another. Minda's expression sours. Tigris has been isolated for quite some time, and now they wish to expand their beliefs, their way of life, to the rest of the world. Ethan and Ashley return the glare. Tell you what, this was a mistake. Ethan apologizes for the misunderstanding. Clearly, the Khanate was misinformed or misled by someone. He understands that it can be hard to tell who to trust. And the camera slides over to a smiling Nadia when he says this. He then advises, or warns, take your pick, the Khanate to stay away from the Heron and Raven nations. He and Ashley turn to leave, excusing themselves. And a metal hand clasps onto his shoulder. Nadia apologizes, but she can't allow Ethan to leave. He brushes off her hand and flexes his own, golden energy snapping around it. She better not try to stop them. She knows what he can do. A bolt of electricity suddenly slams into Ethan's chest, throwing him away from Nadia. The blast comes from her metal arm. She knows what he can do, but he doesn't know what she can do. Ashley suddenly pulls a dagger from her boot and she drives it into the center of Nadia's chest. And Nadia barely reacts. Ashley is flabbergasted. That's impossible. Calmly, Nadia's metal hand grabs Ashley's throat. She can't risk them telling their nations what Tigris is planning. Before she can crush her throat, though, Ethan slashes through Nadia's arm, freeing his girlfriend. He then swings his blade at her face, shouting that he warned her. But once he's done swinging, Nadia is still standing. Ethan and Ashley both stare, him exhaling in shock. Another burst of energy erupts from Nadia, knocking them back and out at the same time. She then pulls the dagger out of her chest, and the camera spins around her. Where Ethan slashed her face, the skin has fallen away, revealing a gleaming silver form underneath. The hand that Nadia just blasted them with is totally devoid of flesh as well. Nadia isn't a cyborg at all. She's an AI. She's a robot. And she just overpowered our superpowered lead. And okay, that is a reveal. We still don't know much about Nadia's background with this reveal, but it is interesting. Nadia told us before that her robotic arm was a replacement for her flesh one. So, did she start life as a person, and then was slowly converted into a cyborg, into a robot, a la the Tin Man from The Wizard of Oz? Or has she just been a robot all along, some kind of super advanced AI? We know that it has been 200 years since the last time that the Raven and Heron nations were at war, and we know that the Tigrisians left their respective homelands either during or before that war. Remember, Nadia said that they hoped the two nations would have destroyed each other in the meantime, so Tigris knew that there had been conflict previously. This means that Tigris has been isolated for almost 200 years. That's a long time to develop and perfect robotic aids or develop AI programs. For comparison, America as a country has only been around for 250 years, and look at how our technology has progressed in that time. Also, take into account that the technology to develop and control life was already present on Avalon. That's how the lesser races were created. So taking that level of advanced technology and then adding 200 years of development means that all bets are off. Anything could have happened in Tigris. This could all be the Matrix as far as I know. But this explains Nadia's ability to see ships far away on the horizon. She has bionic eyes. This explains her ability to manipulate the Widdershims in issue 28. She has built-in weapon systems. And this explains her secret communication, which revealed her goal of world domination. She is a high-up secret agent of Tigris. She got instant access to the leader of Tigris. The Khanate knew everything about Ethan and Ashley, and her meeting with them was set up without a word being sent at all. Can Nadia, hop onto the local Tigris Wi-Fi and message the government? I mean, it's possible. Like I said, anything is possible at this point. Who knows what level of technology they have that they're hiding? I do have to call into question Nadia's motives a little bit. Her message home implied that Ethan and Ashley would be willing allies, but honestly, neither of them have indicated a desire to destroy their home nations. Even when Ethan could have crippled both of the nations, when he separated the fleet, he chose only to separate them. He didn't choose to destroy anybody. After the Khanate makes her pitch and our couple turns her down, Ethan tells her that she has been misinformed, probably by someone that she trusted. And when he says that, the camera focuses on Nadia only. Obviously, this is meant to be a dig at Ethan trusting Nadia, but she's smiling quietly when he says this. And I have to ask, why would Nadia lie to her leader? I think that Nadia proposed this trip not to bring Ethan and Ashley into an alliance with Tigris, but instead to remove them from the board. I think that she knew our couple wouldn't go along with destroying their homelands, but Ethan is too dangerous thanks to his sigil, and Ashley could be a powerful figurehead in either of the lands. So, it's better to lure them away from the powers that could support them and imprison them, if not outright kill them. Now, if and when Tigris makes its move, the single greatest threats to its invasion, Ethan and his sigil, or the unifying power of the Heron Prince and Raven Princess, are off the board. This is why Mars was comfortable revealing Nadia as a double agent a few issues ago, because even with that reveal, we only knew part of the story. I still think that the timing of this is weird. The longer that Scion has gone on, the less author Ron Mars has followed the 7 issues per trade format that CrossGen launched with. After the first year of the book ended, it honestly feels like he has been writing more in roughly year-long arcs. Our second year explored Ethan's alliance to the Underground, it solidified his relationship with Ashley, it saw the foundation of the Sanctuary Isle, a third encounter with Bron, and the end of the war that started this comic. But the second year didn't really build to all of that as a final confrontation. Like, Bron and Ethan kind of just ignored each other and stumbled and bumbled around their respective adventures for about a year, and then they ran into each other accidentally, and then they fought. There was no real build-up to it. In terms of the story arc for year 2, it felt very unstructured. Here in year 3, we've got some kind of background threat building in the Heron Lands with King Dane. We have seen Bron return, which I'm sure is going to be a problem for somebody at some point. And now we have the impending threat of Tigris. We're only a few issues away from the end of year 3, and it definitely feels like we are building to a confrontation of some kind. But what confrontation? A renewed fight with Bron and the Ravens? Or a new war with Tigris? Personally, there is a part of me that is annoyed that Bron is back. Like, this really feels like I've been reading 3 years of the X-Men, and all they have done so far is fight Magneto. You need to mix things up. You need to have some variety. And Tigris looks like a great new potential enemy, but we have little to no personal connection to Nadia, so it's really hard to be as invested in her as I am in Bron. And in Bron's favor, like, damn if he isn't compelling. Issue 31 was almost nothing but Bron being back and talking to his brother, and I loved it. He didn't kill anyone, he didn't fight anyone, he just walked into a room and started subtly threatening, and I loved almost every moment of it. In comparison, we have this moment with Nadia, and I feel almost nothing towards her. I don't even hate her. I just go, oh, that's interesting. I don't quite understand the shape of what Mars is creating here, but I am definitely enjoying the ride. And having our main creative team back, oh, it's such a joy. There is some weird coloring effect when they do those dual scenes of Dane and Bron. The Heron portions are colored like it is a daylight shot. They're very bright and sunny, which makes sense because it's set during the day. But the Raven portion, which we are being shown only moments behind the Heron Lands, have this weird pall cast over them. It is either a very overcast day or it's... I can't even say that it's night. Like, it isn't dark out, it's just gray. And Scion isn't a comic that uses its coloring to convey a mood, generally. It's normally has pretty straightforward coloring. If it's daylight out, then here are daylight covers, that kind of thing. So, seeing both of the nations at the same time, but with one of them oddly lit, is really kind of strange for this book. Otherwise, the line work here is gorgeous. The look of Tigris is sold as being a big deal, and honestly it should be. This is a country that is 200 years removed from what we have already seen, and they have, specifically, even more advanced technology. So its look is meant to be unique, and it's hard to compare to the nations because we've really only seen one Raven Village, the Raven Capital, and the Heron Palace. We don't really have a whole lot of other structures or cities to compare it to. Tigris's buildings are mostly brown, and they are a mix of what looks to me like Victorian-era styling with a touch of Indo-Pacific design work. The entire city looks very clean, but honestly, it doesn't look very special to me. It looks good overall. As artists, these guys are still doing an amazing job, but it just doesn't look special, Still, nice to have them back. Next time, Ethan and Ashley need to escape their new enemies, while their old enemies make moves of their own. Join me in a week for Comic Book Breakdown episode 18.19 of Scion. Bad news for everyone! Everyone, there are a million podcasts vying for your time and attention, and I'd like to thank you for listening to mine. If you would like to get in touch with me to share a concern, request a series, compliment me, berate me, whatever you like, send me an email at cbbreakdown@gmail.com. Otherwise, thanks for listening.